Welcome to another exciting episode of Many Hats of Business, the podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Gordon, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. On this podcast, we explore the realities of business and the many hats we have to wear. I'll be speaking to some fantastic business owners about their journey to where they are today in the hope that they inspire you to go through the tough times so that you get to relish the rewards having your own business can bring. Before we jump in, a quick reminder to subscribe, rate and leave a review if you enjoy what you hear. Your support means the world to us and helps Many Hats of Business, the podcast, reach even more curious minds like yours. Alright, let's get started. Get ready to be entertained, informed and inspired. This is Many Hats of Business, the podcast.
In today's episode you don't want to miss, I talk to Gemma Went. We talk about paying yourself properly and building a business and not a job, looking after yourself and enjoying the journey. She shares insights from her 11 years in business and what's really moved the needle in her growing business. You'll learn so much from her today, and I hope you'll enjoy it just as much as we enjoyed making it. Hi Gemma, great to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us. Would you start by telling the listeners a bit about yourself, please?
Of course, it's lovely to be here. So I am Gemma Went, as you've probably already seen. I've been in this industry. This is my 11th year. I feel like a dinosaur compared to some of the young whippersnappers that come in and do great work. My aim is I help soul-led online business owners to grow and scale to multi-six figures and help them build the foundations that will take them further to seven figures and beyond. And the crucial part of that, I think, for me, is with a business that they love. Because over these 11 years, I've seen people build cages rather than businesses. And they come in with this amazing enthusiasm and all these ideas to do something amazing with their business. And then what they build becomes worse than a job and a cage. And I want to change that, help people build all the wealth and create the dreams that they want, but with a business they actually love.
It's quite a mission then you've created for yourself there.
It is a big mission.
I think it's really good what you were saying about building the business that you love, because that's something that I'm obviously passionate about as well. And I think I'd love to talk more around that point, that people create a wage, not a business, because I think it's something that, I've been in business for 12 years as well. And it can take a long time to get to that stage where you are more in that business position than a business owner, because of that thing of building the team. And it does take time. And I think sometimes people don't start it enough if they do want to build something bigger and then perhaps get worn down with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people come into this online business world with brilliant experience and knowledge that quite often you see them forget. It's almost like they enter this world and they forget all this wealth of knowledge and experience that they have. And it's almost like they're starting from zero again. And they start from this place of doubt. So as they build, it's from this place of doubt. And it takes quite a lot of people a long time to build the confidence to be able to really grow a true business. And so in that process, what I see is they doubt and they don't value themselves. And so they don't pay themselves enough. And so they are working harder and harder and harder and harder to grow this thing without the real confidence of stepping into that business owner, that leadership, that visionary role that was really going to help them to create something amazing. And then they're not paying themselves enough. Right. And so it's not even a wage. Like for a lot of people, they're not even paying themselves as much as they used to get paid when they had a job, because they wait. And the biggest pattern that I see, and you may see this as well, is that they wait to see what's left over in their business and then use that to pay them, rather than setting their owner's pay and paying themselves that every single month, which just creates resistance. Because then you're like, well, actually, I'm putting in all these hours and all this effort and all this energy, and I'm not getting enough back that's equivalent to that value. And then they just resist it and resent it.
And resent, that's a good word, isn't it? Because it's very difficult. When you're in a job that you resent, that's a challenge, but you can get a new job. But when you're building a business and you start to resent it, it takes a lot of courage to change the business. And of course, and some people are building with the intention that it's to sell, or that's going to be their pension and sell. And they should fill up, that would just take the point to mention now, fill up your pension along the way. Don't rely on it at the end. Because when you're doing something day in, day out, and you start to resent it like that's tough.
It's a really horrible energy to be in. A really horrible energy to be in, and it wears you down if you don't get yourself out of it. And I see this a lot, and it breaks my heart. My company is called The Lighthouse, and the reason it's called that is because we want to shine the light on how brilliant minds can create brilliant businesses and create all the wealth and the dreams that they want to create, right? And do it in a way that's aligned, that's ethical, that's going to get results. And so they come in with all of this enthusiasm and excitement and brilliant ideas. And then this process that they often fall into of not paying themselves enough, doubting themselves, really not working through the mindset, things that come up for every single one of us, then you sit in that resentment and it just completely ruins the whole thing. And I hate seeing that light go out in people. Like, that's one of my biggest things. I can literally see and feel that light going out. And so I think getting to them before they get to that point where the resentment is too much and getting them back on track is really important.
And that's an interesting thing, isn't it, of catching your clients at the right time, because I imagine when you catch them at that stage rather than after the resentment starts, the transformation from working with you will be far quicker.
Yeah.
Because you're starting from a better place, aren't you?
Yeah.
And it's interestingly, when you were saying as well about the paying yourself first, I find if they do pay themselves first and they commit to it, you hit the figures you need to do that.
Yeah.
If you're paying yourself last, it sometimes is reflected in the turnover because you don't then make the effort. And I'm selling from a space of scarcity as well, which is difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same as the kind of the profit first concept by Michael McCalloway, where he has a whole brilliant process. And then a lot of my clients use this, where rather than waiting until the end of the month, you see what profit you've got left for your business. Well, actually, no, you commit to taking 5%, 10%, 15%, 20% out, and you put that into a profit pot first. And it's the same with your owner's pay, and you take that out. And if you look at it from that way around, and I do this when I do financial planning with my clients. In fact, I've just run my 90-day upgrade session with my clients. We start with salary. So I always say, what is the salary you want to pay yourself each month in the next quarter? And then what are your operating expenses, and what is the profit you want to put away first? And then what tax do you need to pay? Well, just really thinking about your tax margins. And then, okay, what minimum revenue do you need to create to make all of those things happen? And then now let's map out what you need to sell to make that happen. And so it's coming from the other end rather than, I want to make 10K months. What does that mean? What does that leave you with? And more often than not, 10K months actually doesn't leave you with a lot of pay for the salary for the owner.
And it means you're VAT registered, which is a bit more of a, depending who. It's difficult because I talk to people sometimes about it, that they see the figure of 100K, like, well, obviously you were saying 10K a month, so that's 120, but, they have I want to hit 6 figures. But if they're working with clients that are consumers rather than businesses and aren't VAT registered, it can be a negative if you want to catapult past the VAT registration to make sure there's not a tax negative of doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
From an earning point of view. So obviously you've been in business for a very, very long time. What do you think is the best thing you've done in your business to really move the needle or make a difference in your life, make it easier? Or
I think there are 2 things that really shifted things for us. The first one is moving from a one-to-many to what I call a many-to-many model. So obviously one-to-many is taught a lot, and that's, the founder, the leader, the coach, the mentor, whoever, working with lots of different clients in a group capacity, masterminds, trainings, programs, whatever, which is great, right? Which is great until it gets so big that it's exhausting and it's not scalable.
Exactly, not passive.
No, it's not passive. There are very few things that are passive. But if you then bring in people to work alongside you, other coaches, mentors, strategists, whoever, to serve your clients and position your business as that way. So no longer selling me. So in a one-to-many model, I'm selling me and my expertise and everything that I do. In a many-to-many model, I'm selling me and my success coaches and my associates that also work with my clients. Now, these are people that are brilliant at what they do. In some cases, better at what they do than I am, where we work as a team to serve the clients together. And I think shifting to that, and I've had that model now probably for about 4 or 5 years. And I started slow and just kind of played with it. I'm now in a really good place where, and I think some people can get this wrong. There are some people that try to do this where they continue selling as if it's one-to-many. So they're selling me, the leader, the founder, the great person, and then people join and find that they're working with other people, which hasn't been what they're sold, and that creates some unrest. With us, we're like, I moved from a personal brand, so it wasn't about me. We moved to the Lighthouse, and then I sell the team. Like on every page, you see who you're working with and why. And that made a massive difference to our results, and they really increased, and it made a massive difference to me and the amount that I need to work, because it wasn't feasible for me to work as much as I wanted to grow the business and scale the business in the way that I wanted. And so by having this team, it really makes all the difference. And so that shifted everything.
It's the worth at this point as well, of pointing out to people, isn't it? Because, we were talking about people basically growing a job. If you want to sell a business, you can't be selling a job. So
no.
The fact that you're branded as not you is very beneficial in this, because if you were selling Gemma Went Business Limited, nobody wants to buy it really because they're not you. And also, when you do come to sell, you've really got to show yourself as being redundant or able to be redundant in your business.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, you've got to
point that out to people now, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. And you've got to make a conscious decision with that. And that was the decision. I think we'll come to this discussion as well, because you and I were talking about it earlier. That was a conscious decision when I shifted from Gemma Went brand to the Lighthouse, because I realized I wanted to build something, to build a legacy and exit and sell later. And I couldn't do that with the brand Gemma Went. And I couldn't do that with the way that it was set up. And so all of these moves were very much in alignment with that. And then the second, going back to the original question, the second thing I think I did that made all the difference was bringing in partnerships with other people. And so that is where I become a partner with someone else, and we have a revenue share or a profit share, depending on what the deal is, where I get a percentage of that, but I am doing the business mentoring or the marketing, and they are doing a lot of the delivering. And that has been great, actually, because I think part of the reason that I've loved that is when I work with clients, particularly when I work one-to-one, I feel like I'm part of the business. It's almost like I'm a non-exec board director. Yeah. And that's how I feel, and I'm very invested in their business. And that's why I don't do lots and lots of one-to-ones, because I can't be that for lots of people.
Yeah, you can't be that mentally invested with it.
No, it's just impossible. So I have a few one-to-ones that I do that with, and they tend to stay with me for a long time. For that reason, really, we're in it for the long haul. We're like, let's look 5 years ahead and where we want to get the business. When I do that with partnerships, I really am invested. Like, I'm literally invested. And so it gives me variety, which I need. Like, as part of my human design, as part of having ADHD, I need these things that get me excited and give me the variety. So both of those things, I think, really shifted things for me in the business and just opened things up. And I actually think both of those things make me a better mentor, just through the things that I learn as part of that and then can kind of share with other people.
And it's very good as well, isn't it, that you're working towards your strengths and how you like to work, because like you say, you noticed that when you're doing one-to-one work, you become very invested, potentially over-invested for the investment level, as I imagine it was, way back when.
Yeah.
And now you said, okay, well, that's how I like to work. How about I look to explore that further so that it becomes something that I can do? It's different from what a lot of people are offering, and then it's financially and mentally rewarding for you in that way.
Yeah, and it's great. I love it. It's fun. And, that's probably something I'll keep on doing for years. And I love that. Like, that feels fun. It feels really fulfilling. And, it kind of fits with my ethos and my mission of really lighting the way and supporting other people in bringing their business dreams to life and creating their own ripple effects. And, part of our mission at the Lighthouse is to create other leaders and lighthouses that create ripples effects, and we're all kind of connected. And so it really ties in with what we're trying to do with that.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny actually, because when I do my work with businesses, I've got a company called Beacon Business Consultants Limited, which owns Many Hats, a subsidiary. And I've got a lighthouse as my logo because it's that same thing.
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
I'm like, how spooky that we should both situation.
Aligned. It's perfect.
Mm-hmm. What do you wish someone had told you earlier in your journey?
Such a good question. So many things. I think trust yourself more. It's so easy to fall into listening to other voices in this space.
And it is a noisy space.
It's a noisy space. And those voices aren't right for you. I mean, if you think about when I entered this industry, right, I'd already had a business. I had an actual digital and social media agency in London, and we had an office in Soho. And so I built that for quite some time. And it was great, and it was really successful. I was also on the board of directors at 2 big multi-7-figure agencies in London. And I'd worked for a big innovation consultancy, and I'd worked with global brands and corporates and had so much experience. I'd won awards, really good experience. Yet I entered this industry and I started doubting myself when I was hearing these voices of other people that didn't have nearly as much experience as I did. And it was a really interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, I'd like to point out right now to the listeners that if, Gemma suffers from imposter syndrome, it's totally normal that you get it.
Right? And it's so freaking normal. We all have.
So imagine now when you're listening to yourself saying about your experience, you're like, how did you suffer so much at the start? Because, it's crazy, isn't it? You probably had more experience than the people telling you things that made you doubt your experience.
Yeah, I did. I do remember investing a few times. And, I have a real stance on investments. There's lots of talk around investments in the online space and pulling coaches down and people not delivering. And that is true, and it happens. And again, that's our mission at the Lighthouse, to train people to deliver at a higher quality. And we have certifications and things that we do with that. But I did find with a few of my early investments, I invested and I knew more than they did. And that was a real kind of wake up call for me. And that was on me. That was my responsibility. I absolutely take that. But I really recognized that I needed to understand and appreciate my own experience and my own value and what I bring, and just be really careful about who I invest in and make sure they are genuinely people that are ahead of me and know the things that I need to know next. And that was a real kind of wake up call. I think as well in the early days, and this is before I realized I had ADHD, I get massive dopamine hits from new ideas and doing new creative things. And when you're running your own business, there's no one telling you off. There's no one telling you to stop and focus. It's literally just you leading yourself, which is why I really focus on helping people become leaders, because leading ourselves is number one. And when we could do that, we could do pretty much anything. But I wasn't. And I was just like weekly, monthly, oh my God, I had this idea and I'm going to go do this. And the amount of time we waste on new ideas without following through on a previous idea until it's successful and profitable and running itself, or it doesn't work and we ditch it and then we move on, but we've given it enough time to test it. I think I wasted years.
It's really just you say that,
flitting.
because I had this conversation yesterday with one of my team members, and I was saying that I think particularly because I've had these conversations with my husband as well, because he's a financial advisor, and I said a lot of the people that I'm around and I work with, they started their business for the freedom. And he said, I didn't really hear that so much from my clients. And I said, well, in my space, like, I hear it a lot. And I think what I kind of came to realize is I think a lot of the people I'm around are women that have been in corporate, particularly. So they come into this space thinking they're going to have the freedom of having your own business. But then, like you say, you've got to lead yourself and manage yourself, and you haven't got any deadlines, and no one's giving you any deadlines because you've got to set them. And then all of a sudden, you're not getting the freedom because you're trying to do all the things. You're investing in everything, so you're not earning the money you want it to, which you could be if you just took a step back and took your time a little bit, because we all want the results now. And, you know, then add in diagnosed or undiagnosed ADHD to the mix. And it's just like, wow, you know, we really are setting ourselves up to fail because of not understanding ourselves. In the case of, like, I'm pretty sure I'm borderline. There's no point me going through any diagnosis, but let's face it. But, you know, having that potential with undiagnosed ADHD, having everyone trying to sell you stuff and you're in that space and the FOMO is real, you know, and then trying to lead yourself and want everything now, it's like, wow. People coming into business and they've been highly successful in their corporate roles, and it's just a different kettle of fish, isn't it, when you haven't got somebody to answer to all the time. And that's why, you know, an accountability coach is is just like a brilliant thing straight away, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of people really fall down in this online space. And it's certainly the lesson that I learned, and I'm still not brilliant at it now, you know, 11 years on. I'm quite happy being imperfect, but it's you know, it's a daily management. It is a daily management.
Have you got any tips for, like, anything you do particularly daily, any routines that really help you in your business or to keep that needle moving forward?
Yeah, I think for me, the routines are more inner work. So in the Lighthouse, we really focus on two things. The strategy, which we're really strong at, and that's kind of my heritage, and also Kerry, who's my success coach. She's got a very similar background to me, ex-agency, worked with big brands and so on. And we're really big on the strategy and the creative strategy as well as part of that. But we also really focus on energetics, which is your energy, your nervous system, and your mindset, because you have to have two things to create a successful business, because if you don't have one, the other just won't work. And that's one of my big learnings as well through this journey. And I think my most important routine is daily inner work. So the energetics. I have something that I call, and it's in my diary, called the Sacred Four. And it's just, and this really works again with my ADHD head, 4 things of 5 minutes. 5 minutes of journaling, 5 minutes of movement, 5 minutes of meditation, or just stillness, and 5 minutes learning to get your brain thinking about something else. Each of them have a different role to play. And I quite often find that I want to do more than 5 minutes. And sometimes I will do, particularly if I'm learning something. So when I was doing this up until recently, I've just started reading a book. So I'm reading a little bit of the book every day. I was just going into Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO podcast, and I'd be like, I just listen to that for 5 minutes. And then quite often I get stuck into it and I'll carry on listening. But those, what they tend to do is take me out of my day-to-day, out of whatever I'm doing in my head, and then give me those essential things that really make the difference to my mental health, to my mindset, to my energetics that day. I mean, the movement was the biggest surprise for me. I didn't realize quite how sedentary I'd become sitting behind my desk. I've got dogs. I do a dog walk, but I can still sit for hours because the hyperfocus can keep me here for like 3 hours writing something or doing something. And so I've got a little rebounder, little mini trampoline thing. So I'll either go and jump on that for 5 minutes, which is amazing, or I'll whack on some music, dance around like a loon in my lounge. And that just...
The totally when the postman arrives or something.
Yeah, no, thankfully the postman can't see me. But that just lifts me up. So each of those things have something really important to do that make a massive difference. And I have it in my calendar every day because otherwise I will forget to do it. Those things made a huge difference. The other routine that I have, and it's not daily, it's weekly, that was really important to me is checking in on the numbers. So going in and looking exactly where you are, your numbers, looking at your projections, looking at your cash flow. I can easily ignore the numbers because I have a finance manager, and it's one of my earliest hires. I have a brilliant accountant and I have a finance manager. So I don't have to do anything when it comes to the numbers. She pays the invoices, she tracks everything, does the bookkeeping, does absolutely everything. So I didn't have to do anything. And I set that up because I don't like numbers. And again, it might be an ADHD thing, but I used to be very sort of uneasy with them. So I gave them to someone else. But what I recognized is when you're growing and scaling a business, you have to be so close to the numbers to know where you're headed, to know if there's going to be a pitfall, to plan for the future. And with me, someone who wants to exit eventually and sell the business eventually, I've got to be so on top of my numbers. And so having this diary date, it's on a Monday, every afternoon, to look at the financials and just go over that has been really important as well.
That's a really good lesson for people, isn't it? Because I know it's one of the things I talk about a lot. I was a finance manager before I went into business, and it's one of the things that has helped me no end in business. And I do talk about it a lot because I have that understanding. And a lot of people, especially if they've come from a corporate role, for example, and they haven't had any input in figures in that way, and they haven't got the understanding, it makes it really difficult. And I think it's one of those things you need to learn quite early on. And I think some people think, oh, I've got an accountant, so I don't need to, which isn't the case. And that once you get the information from the accountant, it's usually so late until well after year end, or like they're approaching their SATR in January, for example. And it's dangerous, really.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, we don't have enough training and teaching around money. And I think money is such an emotive topic. And I think particularly for women, and how we've been brought up in the messages that we've heard around money and our worth, that when women create businesses, we typically become very afraid of it, or we have some other emotion around money. And I think getting to know the numbers and getting comfortable with them and not avoiding them really helps you to overcome a lot of that.
And bypass some potential pitfalls along the way, of which that will come up, won't they? Because that's what happens in business.
Exactly.
No, that's really valuable information. I'm just really glad we got on to the finance thing as well. That's brilliant. I know you've said about, for people that are about to take their leap in business, you've talked in the questionnaire about knowing that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And I think it's worth touching on with people because people don't always realise.
Yeah, I think, in the online space, well, not just in the online space, I've worked in lots of different industries in my time. There are always smoke and mirrors. There are always unethical people. There are always those things going on in every single industry. I think it's quite rife in the online business world because it's unregulated. It's new. It can create super fast growth. Like, I don't think I've ever seen an industry where you can create huge financial gains as quickly as you can in the online space and profit, though. Like, our profit margins are ridiculous. I remember when I first took on my accountant, who works with all sorts of businesses, and he's brilliant. He's been with me for years now. And he just said, I can't believe your profit margins. Like, they're just amazing. And they are, right? So with all that said, it's very easy for people to come into this space to set up a business and then claim whatever they want. And we see a lot of that. We see a lot of people using money marketing. Oh, I just had a download and then I made £10,000 in a day, and here's how you can do it too, which is scary when you think about it. People paying for that. It's like, well, hang on a minute. They haven't repeated it. It's not validated. There's no process to it. Like, they haven't done it with like 20 other clients that you can check in on. You're just going to buy something that someone said they did it yesterday and they probably actually didn't. And that we see a lot of that.
They did. They only did it yesterday. So
exactly. And it's like,
that yet.
Yeah, it's not validated. Like, most of the things people sell in this space aren't validated. And then add to that when it is real and people are selling something and it's, it is something that's validated and it works, they won't show the whole story. And so they're not talking about actually what it takes. Like, took me some sleepless nights and a lot of trial and error, and it didn't work straight away, and I had to tweak it a little bit. But that's normal. Like, that's normal for any business. But they don't say that, so people will expect that they can just jump in, do exactly what they said, and get the same result. It's never going to happen. There are too many nuances. Also, they don't show the whole picture of, well, if they're saying, this created £10,000 in a day, all right, what did it cost?
Yeah.
And what?
No.
Exactly, right? And so we see so much smoke and mirrors for people to just sell things, and then people fall prey to that because, oh my God, it sounds so amazing. It sounds too good to be true. I'm just going to buy it, rather than it sounds too good to be true. Let's not buy it because it sounds too good to be true, right? And so I think
that because it's a bit like Instagram a few years ago, because now we're quite accepting that the Insta life is probably, well, almost definitely quite fake in the sense that they're showing the one picture, not the 50 it took to get there, or they'll say some fancy place, and it's like you're actually stood in front of a nice looking hedge in England that you've come up.
Yeah.
But it's in Instagram, you go, okay, I get that they're showing their best life, but it hasn't, and it's starting to come across to like this online space that we're in, where people go, oh, okay, yeah, of course you're putting out the best life and not actually, and some people have started, haven't they, to be a bit transparent with, okay, these are the bad times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important, but the thing is that doesn't always sell. And that's why the smoke and mirrors works. In our everything that we do, we'll talk about helping people to get to a monetary goal, but we talk about what we need to do on the way there and the realities of how long it will take, and the importance of focusing on the boring stuff, like the foundational things that you have to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat to actually get the actual goal that you wanted in the first place, which isn't sexy and it isn't exciting. Predominantly business that creates a lot of success is freaking boring. It's just systems and repeating, and it's not all the stuff that we get excited about. But my God, the achievement and the wealth that gives, that's sexy and exciting. So I'll always go for boring, repeat, if it gets me those things, because that's the end result, right? But not a lot of people share that because people don't buy boring, repeat, foundational things. No. They buy I want 10K in a day.
Yeah, it is just so true. And it isn't sexy, is it? And like you say, but it's so important. And I think as well, with or without ADHD, people get bored of it.
Yeah.
But it is that consistency with boring that gets the results.
Yeah, exactly. And you just got to stick with it. You've just got to stick with it. And I say this with a lot of passion because this is my own journey. Yeah. I just wanted the exciting things. And like I said at the start, I think I wasted years doing that. I could have absolutely have got to a different goal had I just knuckled down and stuck with one thing and then tweaked and repeat, and built systems around it and scaled it. I could have probably sold it by now, right? And it's so...
It is part of your journey that now you can help people with the exact problem that had you not had that experience as part of your journey, it would have made it much more difficult for you to understand that the problems people have, the imposter syndrome, they're just generally getting distracted by shiny objects and things. One of the things I wanted to ask you actually earlier when you started, we talked about the spirituality side. I was going to ask you, how long have you been into the spiritual side? Is it something that you were quite involved in before your business, or is it something that's grown with you and your business?
Yeah, I've always had it, but I didn't know what it was. And so I have always been an intuitive, but I just thought those were my own thoughts. I've always manifested, and I always used to call it lucky. No, I'm lucky. I got that thing that I really wanted. And that's happened throughout my life, from childhood until I got to this online business world and then started reading about these things. And I had that real, moment of, okay, this is actually a thing, and this is something I'm really interested in. And so I've always been it. I've always had it. And actually everybody has it. Some people are more aware of it than others. Some people use it more than others. I don't think it's particularly a gift that I alone have or anyone else has. We all have these abilities. We just choose to know whether to use them or not, right? And so for me, I just became more aware of it and aware of how, when you really understand these elements, you can really harness them to support yourself and to support others. And so I love it. I love this side of things, and it really helps to ground me. It helps me to tune into my own inner wisdom and take guidance that's for my own good, rather than rushing ahead with things that probably aren't in alignment with me. So it's been a really important journey for me to understand this more.
Yeah, I feel like the spirituality side of things is kind of like a coming of age thing that happens at various points in our life, because it just lands with people at different times, doesn't it? And it's something that I'm going down the journey of. And for those who don't know me, I'm around about the least patient person in the world. No, it's been funny. So I learned how to do Reiki last February, and it was just amazing for me. And it was one of those, like, with you want to learn something about it. And I thought, well, I had a treatment, and I knew there was a course coming up, and I thought, I really want to know more about this. I'm just going to do the course, because then, what a better way to learn. And it's been brilliant for me, and it has helped me a lot with becoming more patient, particularly, and things like that. And I just think when you start to understand more about how you work as a person, it does help with a lot of things at the end of the day. So yeah, it's something I'm learning more about, but there's just so much, isn't there? And I felt terrible yesterday, and I just was thinking, it's stress, because I decided to launch the podcast on my birthday and go to a networking event 1.5 hours away, and I was the presenter there, and I was like, oh my God. And then I think it maybe was to do with all other stuff going on. Like
it was the eclipse. Yeah, the energies were.
But that's just like a whole can of worms that, like, reading into that it's higher than my understanding currently. It's something I want to learn more about.
Yeah, and I do believe it comes to you when you're ready for it and when you need it. Certainly my own learning has been like that over the last few years.
And it's obviously very developmental, isn't it? And suddenly have a whole understanding of everything spiritual overnight, because it's fast.
Yeah, it is fast. Yeah.
One of the things that, because obviously I'm very much about learning, as you are, one of the things I like to leave people with on here is your book recommendation of, doesn't have to be, the book that altered your life, but if there is, then great. But if, a book recommendation that you think everyone in business should really read.
Oh my gosh, I'm answering this looking at my vast library that I love books.
We could do a podcast entirely on Gemma's book recommendations. So
we really could. I mean, I'm looking at it. It's ridiculous. It's huge. I've got shelves full of books. So picking one is really difficult, but I'm going to. I think it's the one I picked up yesterday, which really spoke to me. I wanted to read again. Abamete, The Body Says No. the cost of hidden stress. We do a lot of work in the business on nervous system. One of my people on my team is a nervous system coach. She's trauma trained, and she weekly does nervous system recalibration sessions for my clients, because I really recognize how unregulated a lot of clients are in this space. And I think not listening to your body and not paying attention to the stress that you're under when you're running a business and how it can greatly affect your health is one of the biggest dangers in the online space. And so understand, and certainly for me, that's been the case. So I've had a real health journey where I had gut health issues. I had something called SIBO, which is very much caused by stress, which I think was through having ADHD and everything that's connected with that, but also running a business and not really understanding my own stress levels on my nervous system. And now going through...
You realised you'd got ADHD as well? Or
Yeah, absolutely. And then being diagnosed with PTSD last year, which was mostly due to going through quite a horrible divorce, but also other things as well. And it made me really think about the effect of stress on our bodies and how we talk all the time about looking after our energy and looking after our mindset and focusing on the strategy of the business, but everybody's ignoring their bodies and the massive signs that our bodies are showing us when we're under this stress. And so when we're running a business, we have to think about the body, the soul, and the mind, and then what we're actually doing, the action we're taking. And so this book, I think, is brilliant for really helping you understand the dangers of hidden stress and then, what to do about it, because I think it's really important that we balance all of those things.
No, that's brilliant. And it's interesting because this is the 4th episode, and of the first 3, 2 of them had strokes. And it's a figure that just blows my mind. And I think it's something that we need to, like strokes used to be something that you associated with, particularly men of a certain age and health and all of this. And you just like, one of them was 32, and you just like, oh my God. I think part of it's in that rush to success, isn't it? That everyone wants to do that, but you've got to enjoy the journey, because if you don't take the time to look after yourself and enjoy the journey, you're not going to make it.
And it's such a waste of precious time. And this is why I really focus on building.
And especially if you're not earning enough along the way as well. Like
exactly, the stress of that is huge. And I think this is why I focus on building a business you love. Because when you build a business that you love, you enjoy the journey on the way to whatever the goal is. And if we're just focused on the goal, whatever that goal is, and we're just bulldozing through until we get to that goal without enjoying that journey, well, what's the point? There's no point in that.
But it's that thing, isn't it, of like the goal in life. We're all racing to this point in time, wherever this is, whatever the goal is. Essentially, it's a game where we're all going to lose because we're all going to die. You can't, you've got to enjoy it along the way. And having your own business, now I've done it for a long time, as you have, it can be so rewarding. But God, it's tough along the way, and you've got to take like that rough with the smooth and realise, this too shall pass. And what can I do to help it pass and improve my situation? But it really is important that you are taking the money along the way.
Yeah, it really is. It is. Health and wealth.
Yeah.
Those are the most important things.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, I've loved it, and I'm sure the listeners will love it. And I'll share all your links below in this so that they can find you. So
amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Many Hats of Business, the podcast. Your support means a lot to me. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your business friends, as they may find it useful too. If you hit the follow button, you'll be first to know when a new episode lands. See you next time.